It is an honor, indeed, a pleasure, and a privilege to stand before you again on this day. We praise God for all that the Lord is doing in our lives. I still say, as our foreparents have stated, that we are sometimes just beginning to catch on. He didn't have to do it.
Amen.
But we're certainly glad that He's assembled us here again just one more time.
Yes, sir.
To our Heavenly Father, we thank God for another opportunity, to Jesus Christ, our Savior, and our Lord, the Holy Spirit, a constant comforter and our guide. We thank God for the presence of Minister Mathis on today. All other ministers of the gospel being under the weather or sharing with other fellowships today. We're continually praying for Evangelist Perkins, Minister Williams, and of course our very own Minister Campbell. God continue to place healing hands upon her. We're praying for all the services that are in our community on this morning, but we thought it not robbery to be here and assemble ourselves together just to encourage each other in the Word of God. And for that, we are eternally grateful. Don't want to usurp your time now. Since we have so many obligations in the next month or so, I thought it would be nice to have an informal, formal service. And maybe you'll get out of time to have brunch today. Don't count on this next week. Just today. Maybe you get home in time to have brunch instead of lunch. Go with me, if you would be so kind, to Romans the 12th chapter. Romans the 12th chapter. This is our focus on Family Sunday. This is our focus on Family Sunday. So we're going to talk and teach and deal with some issues that we as a family, oftentimes, we like to, my godfather has a saying, he says sometimes we like to sweep the dirt up under the rug. But if you keep sweeping it up under the rug long enough, you're going to get a lump in the rug. Somebody's going to get tripped up. Someone is going to become tripped up on what we've been sweeping up under the rug. So let's get the broom out so we can do a little housekeeping today. And remember that all change starts with ourselves. All change starts with M-E-V. Beginning there, the 12th chapter of Romans, look at particularly the 18th verse. The 18th verse. When you found it, just please signify by saying amen.
Amen.
I'll give it a few more moments. Amen. Romans, the 12th chapter, beginning at the 18th verse, it says, if it is possible, as much as depends on you, live peaceably with all men. Beloved, do not avenge yourselves, but rather give place to wrath, for it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. Therefore, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him a drink. For in doing so, you will heap coals of fire on his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. But overcome evil with good. Just for a few moments, we want to talk about learning how to diffuse the devil.
All right.
Learning how to diffuse the devil.
Yes, sir.
My brothers and my sisters, a lot of what we in church become so polite over time and don't want to discuss is that conflict is normal. Let me say it again. I know y'all still writing, but conflict is normal.
Yes,
Let me just walk with y'all. We don't always get along or have the same opinions or views as each other.
Amen.
Conflict is common. When we are born, oftentimes babies and toddlers will disagree with their parents because the first thing you get is a little tap and a no. And sometimes now parents say no and the kid says. Then there are conflicts between siblings as you learn how to grow up, especially if you have to live in the same room. One sibling does it this way and another sibling does it another way. And before you know it, World War III has been declared in your home and the parents knew nothing about it. And then moving on, as you grow up, you get into this arrow stuff, and then you start learning what love is really supposed to be like. And you know for yourself, once you start dating and then God help you if you decide to marry someone, you understand that their upbringing has to mesh with your upbringing, and everybody's upbringing is not the same. And where there was much love, now there is some conflict. He squeezes the toothpaste from the middle and you want it rolled up from the bottom. You gonna talk to me, you hang the toilet paper from the back, and but you want to hung from the front. And it goes on and on. I mean, there are all kind of different ways. We could go on for days and days with the minor idiosyncrasies in life, the little stuff in life that oftentimes can trip us up. But conflict is normal. And somehow we get saved and we come to the church, and then we think that since we are supposed to love ye one another, the conflict will never occur again. But let me help you. That's a trick of the enemy. It's not the fact that conflict will not occur, but it is how we as Christians are supposed to conduct ourselves during the seasons of conflict. Conflict is an opportunity for all of us to grow. And why do you say that, Brother Pastor? I'm glad you asked me. Conflict, if nothing else, will teach you patience. Because oftentimes you really have to learn how to wait on the Lord. Conflict will teach you how to communicate, because oftentimes you would want to either cut or curse. Y'all get polite when y'all come to church. Y'all want to cut or curse. Y'all ain't no need of you looking like that. All y'all been young and had some things on your mind. And come on, your mind. Now some of y'all are too sweet to have those things on your mind, but fool your pastor just for the day. Just make me think you didn't never have that on your mind. But you also know, y'all, listen here, I can tell you I had some things in my arsenal over time. But there's a way that you deal with the conflict. Conflict must be handled or it will destroy us. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Conflict must be handled or it will destroy us. You got to learn how to deal with conflict. Yeah. And so, there's a model called the turtles and the sharks. For the turtles, the goal is to avoid. And there are many of us that do try to avoid conflict, but we do it in a manner that does not give glory to God. So let's it's Family Sunday, is it not? Okay. When you're trying to avoid conflict, oftentimes you can shut down. Now y'all don't want to talk about this. We're going to talk about it today. I'm a victim of this here. I can shut down with the best of them. I can see you and not see you. Lord help me. All right. Oftentimes we think we're being polite, but really we're being rude in a polite manner. How is it that you're just not going to deal with what's at hand? When you're going to defuse the devil, you can't that's not a devil. Remember, we talked about in last week's teaching of being a good soldier. You wrestle not against what? Flesh and blood. That's the hardest lesson it is for us as believers to really get. But we're talking about principalities. It's the spirit, it's not the person. But oftentimes we can charge it to the person, and then we want to just block them out. You know, there was a famous saying that we made famous about 20 years ago. We used to give people a hand. And now these days we say stuff like, bye, Felicia. Y'all ain't talking to me in here. Y'all ain't talking to me in here. But we as Christians, when you shut down and then you just don't speak at all, it is showing that we have no love in our hearts for that person. Don't you know we as believers are even supposed to smile at the enemy? And you say, Pastor, how can I smile at my enemy? I can smile at my enemy simply because the trap that you set for me, apparently it didn't work. I still survived. But there's sometimes when you just have to deal with what you're feeling in your heart.
Yes, sir. Thank you, God.
Sometimes as turtles, in order to use a tactic of avoidance, we give folk the cold shoulder. Now, church folks are famous for this. I didn't say Christians. Church folk. That's that little sorry pat hug you give. That's those dry answers you reply with. How you know I'm all right? Praise the Lord. Thank you so much. And you don't even want to say hi. You try to turn your back. so that they'll get the message to go on, so that this interaction will not have to continue. I just want to remind us that those type of reactions are not Christ-like. Christ even entertained those that were left out and those who were the least of us. Yes. So don't we think we owe it to one another to at least greet each other with holy affection? Amen. Let me say this again. Greet each other with holy affection. Then it is that we can withdraw affection. Listen, married couples are famous for this one. Let me throw this out here at you. Corinthians, that's a whole nother lesson on a whole nother day. But don't you know you can't just stop loving somebody? It's impossible. You don't just stop. Something happened. There was a catalyst to cause you. And let me be honest with you, even those of you that may be separated from the one whom you once loved, you didn't stop loving them, but living with them just got to be unbearable. Come on, y'all might as well tell the truth in here. Living with you was killing me. Y'all ain't gonna talk to me in here. It wasn't the fact that I didn't love you anymore. I just couldn't take it anymore. And let me help you. You want to know, folks get on your nerves because you have a soul tie to them. Y'all don't want to talk about soul ties either. That's another family lesson. But because you connected to them. And come here, let me give you a little insight. I'm going to put this as polite as I know how. Once you have been intimate with anyone, you're tied to them for the rest of your life, whether you want to be or not. You've given up a part of yourself that you can't get back. Okay. Y'all, all right, look at me with the church face today. I have one too. But the matter of fact is the only way they can get under your skin, the only way that they can rub you the wrong way is that there is some affection that you have in your heart for that person, and so they irritate you. Come on, tell the truth. Just come on, tell the truth in here. But when you love somebody, you can't stop loving them. In other words, you just can't shut how you feel down. Look at your neighbor and say, you just can't shut how you feel down. Can let me throw this in here. If you know that God loves you, what if God just shut down his affection for us? What if God just shut down his favor towards us? We can't avoid conflict because you can't stop loving who you love. But what you can do, you got to learn that we try to redirect. But listen, we can run into diversionary tactics. And we have a natural inclination to withdraw. What are you trying to say, Pastor? Well, oftentimes we can find other ways to entertain ourselves rather than dealing with the conflict. I'm an MAN, so I'm going to talk for us. I'm trying not to get nobody in trouble. I hope I don't tell any club secrets. But oftentimes, instead of coming home to your fussing, I'll go home by way of the store. I'll go home by way of my mother's house. I'll go home by way of my brother's house. Hoping by the time I get there, that you are either too disgusted or too tired to fuss. One or the other, because you know sometimes y'all are just going to your room and shut the door. But either way, it's quiet when I get there. And I don't have to deal with what I was going to have to deal with if I had showed up on. Ladies, y'all have diversionary tactics because y'all go shopping for nothing. You've been to Walmart 3 times today. Why are you still going back by Walmart? How are you going grocery shopping? You just spent $275 at the store on Saturday. It's just Tuesday. What is at the store that you didn't get? The new sale don't come out until Wednesday. You can't fool me and think that you going by there just to pick up something. I'm going for a walk. You ain't exercising that much. You ran by the gym this morning. You don't even like to exercise that much. You just wanted to get out of the house and you didn't want to be bothered with me. But eventually, all successful marriages in here have to tell the truth. Even though sometimes you just need a little me time. You can't avoid the conflict. But here, you got sharks. And the shark's goal is not to avoid, but the shark's goal is to win. What do? They can try to be mind readers. That's a mistake. Because in a relationship, mothers and fathers with children, be it husbands and wives with each other, be it brothers and sisters, however, whatever the relationship is, you should never try to anticipate or read the mind of the other one. But listen here, in order for us to have a healthy relationship, shouldn't you just tell me what you want me to know? The basic mistake that we make with people is, I thought they knew me. You've been with me 17 years and you don't know how I like my hamburger yet? Well, you used to eat mustard when I met you. Now all of a sudden you don't want any mustard nor pickles. What? And come on, let's be real. Sometimes we change over time. When I grew up, my favorite part of the chicken was the drumstick. And right now, that's the only part of the chicken I don't particularly care for. When I was growing up, my favorite flavor of ice cream was chocolate. Now my favorite flavor of ice cream is butter pecan. All I'm trying to say is over time, sometimes people change. So I don't want to make the mistake of reading your mind, because if I read your mind, I might just mess up. But you got to learn how to communicate. Shouldn't you just tell me what's on your mind? We walk around slamming drawers and things. And then I'm supposed to have mental telepathy and figure out what you think. We can play the blame shifting. This is the biggest mistake in most marriages. Let me just be honest with you. I'm going to be honest with you. And families too. Because it's never your fault. Christians, sometimes we just have to take the blame. Y'all ever notice the style that I pastor in? I don't care whether it was my fault or not. I say, I'm sorry. Because at the end, I'm ultimately responsible. So if something didn't go right, whatever it was or whoever you're mad at, don't be mad at them. Go ahead and be mad at me. Number one, I finally grown up enough to take it. And number two, you know, all we can do is try to do better in the future, because we can't go back and get what's happened. And so blame shifting says, it wasn't my fault. You know, we with families that I tried. I was trying to talk to them. I was trying to get them to do the right. It still didn't work out. So who's at fault? Sometimes it's easier just to apologize and move on. You say, he ain't preaching today, but I sure am. Love doesn't keep a record of wrongdoings. Thank you, Paul. 1 Corinthians 13. Love doesn't keep a record of wrongdoings. Sometimes we mess up in relationships when we keep score. And it can be with your brother, it can be with your spouse, it can be with your children. This is the 4th time he lied to me this month. This is the 3rd time she set me up like this. No, she didn't have any intentions of cooking for the family dinner. And now I got to make what she said she was going to make. And then when they show up, this is what we do. We have an automatic attitude. I've been trying to get over that one, because sometimes it just sets in and take root. And so without me even knowing, my facial expression and my body language is delivering what I've been thinking. Y'all ain't talking to me. I'm trying to be cute and polite to you, but when you talk to me, I just, Matter of fact, we don't call it ignoring one another, but I'm eating you. You ain't talking to me in here. Matter of fact, I don't want to hear nothing. You got go and fix your plates on the other side of the room, and don't say nothing to me until I get over this. And you be looking at your scoreboard tomorrow, mark this day, August 27th, 5 o'clock p.m. came in and had an extra helping of my macaroni and cheese, even though she was supposed to cook it. Let's see what's happening for Thanksgiving dinner. If they want me to make it, it won't be eating no macaroni and cheese this year. And what I'm saying is oftentimes we miss the fact that wasn't it really all about the whole family being together? Because let's tell the truth, oftentimes the families don't get together now unless it's a repast or a wedding. Not like we used to. They're awesome. Sharks, the goal is to win, but sometimes they can use logic to escape emotional reality. In other words, they try to rationalize the way that they feel rather than dealing with what the situation really is. But I didn't think it would hurt so much. What they, you know, the best part we like is we like to say how other people should feel because of our actions. They shouldn't have reacted like that. They shouldn't have taken it that way. sometimes we really don't know how we deliver it. Because sometimes my nice can be nice and sometimes my nice can be quite nasty. Sometimes I can give you sweet tea and sometimes it got such a twinge of lemon on it, you get more lemon than you get tea. What are you trying to say, Pastor? We must be careful. If you're going to diffuse the devil, you got to get to the point where you don't try to rationalize how other folk feel. Just look at your neighbor and say, don't rationalize how other folk feel. Okay, come here. Some things, boss, you can say because we can tease each other. And it won't hurt our feelings because we know we just kidding. I'll say it and be snappy and walk off, and you say, your pastor trying to be smart today. You be good with it. But I can say the same thing to Sister Teresa. She said, can you believe that pastor said that to me? And what I'm trying to say is we're all individuals. We can't judge each other by the same measure. You have to understand what your relationship is with that person. There's some husbands and wives that play fight all the time, and they know that they're play fighting. They don't mean any harm to one another. Matter of fact, most of the time, they're just having a spiral match of intellectual wits. They're having fun with it. And everybody else thinking that, look at how they talking to one another. Can you believe they would say things like, I thought they went to church? And you're thinking to yourself, I'm just having some fun. But you have to be careful. I'm saying we have to be careful when we try to rationalize and use logic to justify how we act towards other folk. Look at your neighbor and just say, be careful. Be careful. Sometimes we can make threats or cause humiliation. And then sharks do what sharks do. We attack. The church is famous for this. You ever want to see a good game? Find deacon boards and mother boards and usher boards and choirs. And then this group don't want what that group wants. And then everybody gets ready to strategize. That's the meeting before the meeting. Y'all don't know nothing about that, do you? Yeah, right. The meeting before the meeting. Some of y'all never been involved in any of those. But some of us have heard the outcome of some. In government, they call it lobbying. Because in other words, I need to convince a certain number of folk to think my way before we get there to make the official vote. But there is no lobbying in God's house because it ought to be his way anyway. But number two, why are you lobbying in your own house when all you both need to do is pray and ask God to order both of your steps in his word? What is God's will for my life? You need to get to the point where we ought not want to make people feel bad. All right. You ought not want to be on attack. Look, I did it on a voting ballot because I've seen folk fall out over the color of a curtain. Really? Somebody wanted ham at the church anniversary and somebody said we ought to stick with chicken. And the people that wanted ham got voted down, and now the chicken people are the most biggest devils they ever seen. Can you really understand how that comes about? And really, y'all, we laughing about it, but sometimes folk can get upset. Not upset. Over the most minuscule thing. Somebody out there needs to be witness of Jesus Christ, and you still talking about, I can't believe they served green beans. We could have served greens. But you ain't do that at. You're missing the mark. You can't always be on the attack if you're going to diffuse the devil. You say, am I in the text? Yes, I am in the text. It says, beloved, do not avenge yourselves, but rather give place for wrath. It is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. Because he says, if it is that possible, he said, you got to be at peace with all men. Let me say that again. You got to be at peace with all men. Let me say this again. You got to be at peace with all men. You say, why does pastor talk to everybody? Because you got to be at peace with all men. I'm everybody's pastor. You may not like them, but I love them. Here we go. Let's diffuse. And we going home. I still got 15 minutes. Let me know when I get 6 minutes. I'll call Dougie Fresh. Number one, look. You got to define. You got to define the problem. Proverbs 15:1 says, a wise person is hungry for knowledge, while the fool feeds on trash. Let me say it again. A wise person is hungry for knowledge, while the fool feeds on trash. In other words, a wise person really just wants to get an understanding. If I can get an understanding of how you feel, or how I made you feel, or how this outcome is going to go, then I can become better at what I need to do. But if I don't understand what it is that you like or whatever it is that you need, then I can't make it better. What's our main complaint when a baby is nonverbal and just cries? Because we go through this gamut of questions. Are you hungry? Are you dry? Are you hurting? Are you sick? And you be saying to yourself, I'll be glad when this baby can talk to me. Because what you're really saying is, I'll be glad when they can voice what's really wrong so I won't have to guess, but they can just tell me and I can fix it. Come here, that's my point one. Y'all ain't even got to shout today. If you tell me it's something I need to work on, then I can fix it. But if you have an attitude, if you want to be a turtle and a shark, if you want to avoid me or you want to attack me, then I can't ever fix it because I really don't know what the problem is. You got to learn how to define it for me so I'll know I don't need to do that again. Y'all gonna talk to me in here? Is there anybody in here that can thank God that God will give you an opportunity? Isn't that what you've been asking from God? God, just tell me what you want me to do. Tell me how you want me to grow. Tell me how you want me to love. And I can be a better Christian. Well, that thing works the same way. Vertically and horizontally. So it says it's a fool that keeps wanting to fight. No, let me go back to the text. It says, while the fool feeds on trash. That's them folk that's waiting on the next storyline. Child, what did they say? Child, I wouldn't let them talk to me like that. God, you need to go back and say something to them. And then when they come, they don't say nothing. You ever had them folks who told you what to tell your husband, but they don't have one? Or you ever had them folks that told you how to raise your children, but they don't say that to theirs? Or they're not like, I wouldn't take that on that committee. I wouldn't be on that committee. Well, God didn't call them to be on that committee. That's not even their calling. Why do they have? They're not on the input. Why don't they even know what's going on? Sometimes, let me go ahead and tell you. Let me go ahead and tell you. I don't want to sugarcoat this. Sometimes we open the door for Satan to walk in. Because we ask for what you think. Who cares? Because if they were perfect, their name would be Jesus. Y'all gonna talk to me in here? Mm-hmm. So we got to get to the point where we stop feeding on trash. I understand that Dr. Brookins was famous for this saying, and I already know. He says you can take in all which is good, but all that means you're no good, just put it right on in the garbage. Y'all gonna talk to me in here? And that's what it is. That's trash. You can't feed on trash. You can't grow with trash. Trash will get you so compacted until you can't even see clear. Matter of fact, you'll start having the attitude, and then you'll start acting foolishly. So, you gotta define the problem. Figure out what it is, which leads me to E. You got to engage in a time to talk. Matthew 5:23 and 24 says, this is how I want you to conduct yourselves in these matters. If you enter your place of worship and about to make an offering, you suddenly remember a grudge a friend has against you, abandon your offering. Leave immediately, go to this friend and make things right. Then and only then come back and work things out with God. And that's where we mess up. Because we think if we go to God first, number one, we can tell God our side of the story. Remember, he was there when it happened. And then number two, we think by going ahead and worshiping, that makes us the bigger or better person. But God says, if you don't get it right with that person here, that one that you can see, touch, and feel. You mad with your husband, so you came to church to seek God on your husband. Really? That's the head of your household. Your priest, prophet, and provider. Y'all gonna talk to me? You mad with your mama, so you gonna go tell God all about it instead of just talking to your mama. Let me just tell you, some things you can't pray away. They just must be dealt with. And so that causes, it says, leave the worship. He said, don't worry about your offering. He says, go find that friend and make it right. And then you can come back. And most of us like to come to church and think that God's going to fix it for us when he's already given us instructions to fix it ourselves, then come back to him. Come here, y'all don't want to talk to me. It's much like growing up. Those of you who have siblings who are close in your age, oftentimes you may have had disagreements, and sometimes your mother and father told y'all to go, look, they wouldn't let you play, but they told you go in the room or go over there, and y'all talking out. And when you fix it, come back and see me. Y'all ain't gonna, oh, nobody ever said that? Because what you wanted them to understand is you can't escape each other because all you have is one another. Anybody ever told your the siblings that? You told your children that? You might as well get along because all you got in the world is each other. Look, you're not going to think alike, but you need to go over there and work it out and then come back and tell me how you worked it out. And then I'll make a decision from there. But that's what God is saying to us. You don't need to tell on them because number one, I was there when it happened. So number two, what you need to do is understand I gave them to you in this world for a reason. You need to go over there, pray it, we'll try to work it out. Then come back to me and I'll give you the final judgment. It takes time. It is an investment to be in relationships. So now we're at F. I'm almost out of here. You got to fix and feel. Fix and feel. Fix and feel. Your attention on the perceived problem, not the person. Feel their pain as though it were your own. Fix your attention on the perceived problem, not the person. Feel their pain as though it were your own. What are you trying to say? First thing is, you got to fix your attention on what we think is the problem. Let's get to the root of the matter. What's the problem? And then put yourself in the other person's shoes. And that's what we oftentimes have a problem doing. I'll go ahead and raise my hand because I'm thinking to myself, they shouldn't have done it to me. And God is saying, yeah, but what about how many times you've done it to me? Proverbs 18 and 19 says this: as an offended friend is harder to win back than a fortified city, arguments separate friends like a gate locked with bars. Arguments separate friends like a gate locked with bars. In other words, it says sometimes it's harder to repair relationships when we've had a disagreement. And so it is that we need to figure out how we can agree to either disagree or agree to move on. Y'all hadn't noticed I've been using these 4 Sundays to deal with communication and conflict. You got to get to the point where you understand, is the problem really the person? Or what was really the problem? You've been friends for 20 years and now all of a sudden, it's them. Are you sure? What about them upsets you? You know, you need to get to the point where, you know what, lately you haven't been telling me the truth, and it's causing me not to be able to trust you. And if you got a memory like mine, I can call out the dates. On August 1st at 10 o'clock, I asked you. I got some of y'all in here. Y'all can say whatever you want to say. I asked you back on July 15th if you wanted to go to the mall. You said no. But then it was about on the 17th. You posted that you had been to the mall. And I know you didn't go to the mall on the 17th. You went on the 15th. And so that's what I'm saying. You got to understand. Look at your neighbor and say you got to feel their pain. Sometimes if you're having one of them me days, even though you want to be polite, you'll say, no, I don't want to go. But sometimes you just wanted to go by yourself. But you need to be able to say, well, why did you want to go by yourself? Well, we've been going together all this time. So that you can understand how they felt. Had any of you normally would ride with somebody on a Saturday, but every now and then comes a Saturday where you don't want to be bothered with anyone else, not even really yourself. And so you take a trip, you just want to get away. You just want to be with you. And so what I'm saying is, if you put yourself in their shoes, if you know what they were going through, that'll fix that problem. Because now you won't feel so excluded, and you'll understand that they needed you during that time. What I needed you to do was pray for me, because something must have been not in the ordinary in order for me to go by myself. But they went with you the next week. What you mad about? So here it is. I'm at the U and Defuse. Uncover the root symptoms. Uncover the root symptoms. I'm almost at my 6 minutes. Let me get here. Proverbs 25 says, the intentions of a person's heart are deep waters, but a discerning person reveals them and draws it out. let me just be honest with you. You really know when someone is doing something from their heart, when it's genuine or it's sincere. And you can tell when it really just don't mean you any good. You mean to tell me you've been with Jesus this long and your discernment is not up yet? And so you need to know. I mean, you really need to evaluate it. Did a person do this to be mean? Or were they really just having an off day? Do I have any saints in here that ever had an off day? Amen. All of y'all have had green lights. All of y'all have had cherries in your lemonade. You had chocolate sundaes with sprinkles on top every day. Be a pepper, you a pepper, I'm a pepper, we a pepper. Would you like to be a pepper too? Sometimes it was a Diet Coke day. Everybody remember Tab? It tasted a little bitter, y'all. All I'm trying to say, all of us can have Dr. Pepper days. But what are you trying to say? You got to get to the point where you try to figure out, and that's what you try to teach your children as teenagers, right? You need to find out, is that friend really your friend? Because a real friend will hang on there in there with you when you're ugly, and a real friend will cheer you on when you're at your prettiest. Y'all ain't going to talk to me. A real friend is going to tell you the truth, and a real friend is too good not to make you live a lie. Y'all going to talk to me in here? And those that are the ones that you know, the ones that are there when you're broke, and the ones that are there when you're buying double burgers. Y'all going to tell me in here? You figure out a long time who's there on your side, who's a real friend. Because real friends will help you when you're sick, and real friends will be there when you're on your feet. Y'all ain't going to talk to me in here. And so what I'm trying to say is you need to get to the point where you begin to uncover and find out, are they using me for me, or do they really just love me? Y'all gonna talk to me in here? And then you know what to do. You build your fortunes for them that's just using you. But if you know somebody's been a real friend that sticks closer than a brother, one that has been built for adversity, one that's been there when you were at your best, one that's been there when you were at your lowest, one that has showed up when you didn't call them, one that just picked up the phone and dialed you because they felt in their spirit that you needed them, then those are the people that you need to understand that when we have disagreements, we got to learn how to get over the agreement, because it might be the enemy just trying to break us up, because he doesn't want us to have the support system that God has given us. When you know it's the underlying ingredient in the relationship is love, look at your neighbor and say, you got to learn how to diffuse the devil. Get here. I'm almost through. I want to let you go so you're first in line at the buffet today. Set things right between you. 3 steps, and I'm through. Own responsibility. Confess that I was wrong. Ask forgiveness. Will you forgive me? And go to James. I'm out of here. Go to James chapter 5. Go to the book of James. Go to the book of James. Go to the book of James, chapter 5. And I want you to begin our perusal. Let us begin our perusal at verse 16. At verse 16. It says thusly, confess your trespasses to one another and pray for one another that you may be healed. The effective fervent prayers of the righteous availeth much. Confess your trespasses to one another and pray for one another. Confess your trespasses to one another and pray for one another. Confess your trespasses to one another and pray for one another. If I've wronged you, I need to apologize. But what you need to do, we need to learn how to pray for each other. You say they ain't gonna get no better than it. That's what some people said about you, but with God's grace, we get better. Yeah. And so, number one, if you've had any part to play in this, own it. You can say, I was wrong. It didn't start as a gossiping conversation, but I agreed to what they said. I did. And now I realize that has hurt your feelings. Will you forgive me? But what I want you to understand is that you can't get on your spiritual soapbox because it's not you in the pit this time. But you got to learn how to understand that since God forgives us, we ought to forgive each other. Y'all ain't going to talk to me here. I'm going to lose you right here. Since God forgives us, You got to just confess it and say, I was wrong. But look at your neighbor and say, if you really want to diffuse the devil, you got to get to the point and say, will you forgive me? Is there anybody in here that can say it here today? You need to look at somebody and say, will you forgive me? I know I was wrong for what I've done. I know I was wrong for how I treated you. I know I was wrong for what I said to you. I know I was wrong for what I thought about you. But can you please forgive me? And what I want to tell you is that takes all the power from the enemy. And what you got to do is learn how to love one another. You got to learn how to forgive one another, because vengeance belongs to God. I got 1 minute and I'm going to use it. Look at your neighbor and say, if you want to diffuse the devil, you got to take whatever it is that's been hurting you and put it in the hands of God. Is there anybody in here that understands that if you could fix it, you would have fixed it by now? If you could have changed it, you would have changed the situations by now. But the Lord wants us to be delivered. He wants us to be healed, and He wants us to be set free. Good night. I'm out of here. But I'm trying to tell you is, if you really want to show that you got the love of God in your heart, it says if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If your enemy is thirsty, give him something to drink. It says in so doing you heap coals on his head. But it says don't be overcome by evil. I know they hurt you, but don't allow the devil to use you. Can I come here, Flip Wilson? He always liked to say the devil made me do it. Look at your neighbor and say, don't let the devil make you do it. But is there anybody in here that says, I believe that God has given me an anointing to diffuse the devil? And you say, Pastor, what is that? Look at your neighbor and say, I believe if we just learn how to love ye one another. If we learn how to talk to one another, can we talk? If we learn how to live with one another, if we learn how to name whatever it is that has upset us. Look at your neighbor and say, I believe that we can come in the ranks of what we call overcomers. And oh, as I close, I'm out of it. My 1 minute is over. Good night. I'm packing up my bags now. But what I want to tell you is, do I have any overcomers in the room? Look at your neighbor and say, you got to learn how to thank God by having the spirit of overcoming. Look at your neighbor and say, I thank God that I'm stronger now. I thank God that I'm better now. I thank God that I'm wiser now. Is there anybody in here that can throw up your hands and holler and say, God, I thank God that I don't have to fight like I used to fight. But thank God that if God be for me, who can be against me? Do I have any believers in here that say, I don't have to live the same old way, I don't have to take the same old stuff, but I just want to thank God that I know what real love is. And Brother Pastor, what is real love? I tell you how he diffused the devil. Good night, and I ain't gonna holler no more. But when he died, he blew out the light on hate. When he died, he blew out the light on injustice. When he died, he blew out the light on criticism. But look at your neighbor and say, when he got up, it taught us how to forgive. When he got up, it taught us how to love again. When he got up, it taught us how to tolerate each other again. When he got up, it gave me a little more patience. When he got up, he gave me all power, because he had all power in his hand. Look at your neighbor and say, I can diffuse the devil. So our homes can be better. Our families can be stronger. Our churches can be greater. Our communities can live in harmony. But you just got to learn how to diffuse the devil. Put your blades down. They don't do you no good. Quit holding on to that passive anger. Let it go. And some people can be polite with their anger. They don't say a word to you, but they cussing you out the whole time inside. I know, been one of them. Been one of them. Don't talk to me right now. Give me 5. Give me 5. Don't. In the words of Tyler Perry and his mother, don't walk up on me like that. Y'all do that in church. Y'all act like I don't see. You back up before the person get close to you. You do this when they come back. Think I don't see you? Come on now. And if they hurt you, just tell them you hurt me. I'm working on trying to forgive you, because sometimes you're just not an immediate forgive. Come on, tell the truth. And you just say, I'm praying and I'm asking God to remove it from my heart, because I want to love you. Because all of our goals is to eternally make it in to see Jesus. I got to see Jesus. You can't tell me I've been through all of this and I can't see it. And that's all I'm saying. None of us are bad people, but God does want us to be better. Better Christians, better servants, better husbands, better wives, better fathers, better mothers, better brothers, better sisters, just better people. And so that God can get the glory. Because somebody look at your life and say if he or she can handle that situation like that. Sometimes you look at some people in the way, because I know some of you looked at your mothers and your fathers and how they dealt with other people, because I told you, I used to think people used to just run over my grandmother, make me mad. But you got to say there must be a God somewhere in order to allow them to love like that. And so, St. Stephen's, can I challenge us? I'm talking about me too. I don't think I exempted me. I am not perfect. I don't have a 100 in this one. But we're working together to learn how to defuse the devil so that this church can continue to be the great church that God called it to be. Don't you see greatness when you look around the room? Don't look around and see the hurts of the past, because sometimes they meant it, and sometimes you got to know it was the devil that just caused that rift in that relationship. Because he didn't want y'all to get along, because if you got along, you might start praying. All it takes is 2 or 3 touching and agreeing. And he didn't want that kind of power to show up. That's why he'll make a husband and a wife mad. He don't want you to have that kind of praying power in your house. Because when you're getting along, y'all on one accord. But if he can keep you fighting, even the rats and the roaches get nervous in the house. That's when the children don't want to ask you nothing. They say, never mind. They know that now is not the time to interrupt. And so it's a struggle. It's a challenge. It's a battle. But with the grace of God, I do believe by faith, we can all, that's from the pastor to the last of you, can be better. May God bless you. May God keep you is my eternal prayer.